Hello and welcome to the day ahead. It is Thursday, August the 7th. I'm Andrew Gagan. Well, the local market is set to fall from its record high, with ASX futures off by around 0.3%. Equity markets rose overnight despite the imposition of more US tariffs, with President Trump punishing India with an additional 25% tariff on its exports because it continues to import Russian oil. And in breaking news, the president has just announced that the US will put a 100% tariff on semiconductor chips imported into the country. On Wall Street, stocks gained as earnings beat expectations, with investor sentiment remaining positive, particularly amid dovish Fedspeak. Mega-cap tech stocks led the way, with Amazon and Tesla rallying, and Apple shares climbed after news of its plans to announce a domestic manufacturing pledge of $100 billion that will focus on bringing more manufacturing to the United States, with expectations that iPhones will avert new tariffs on imports from India. Arista Network shares jumped after the cloud networking company projected current quarter revenue above estimates. Advanced Micro Devices and server maker Supermicro Computer fell sharply after the companies posted disappointing results in their data center segments. And investors also keenly watching results from consumer-facing stocks, including McDonald's, which rose after the fast food restaurant's affordable menu drove global sales past expectations. And Disney posted better than expected quarterly results and raised its annual profit forecast, led by gains in the streaming business. But its traditional TV business saw a 28% decline in operating income. Well, President Trump is imposing a 100% tariff on semiconductor chips imported into the country, saying the new tariff rate would apply to all chips and the semiconductors coming into the United States, but would not apply to companies that had made a commitment to manufacture it in the United States. President Trump also imposing an additional 25% tariff on Indian goods because of India's continued imports of Russian oil. The new import tax is due to come into effect at the end of the month and will raise duties on some Indian exports to as high as 50%. However, the executive order did not mention China, which also imports Russian oil. Meanwhile, President Trump is open to meeting Russian President Vladimir Putin as soon as next week, according to the White House, as the US looks to impose secondary sanctions on Russia at the end of the week in an effort to pressure Putin to end the war in Ukraine. There's been more dovish commentary from the US Federal Reserve members, with Neil Kashkari advocating 2 cuts by year's end, saying the economy is slowing. In the near term, it may become appropriate to start adjusting the federal funds rate. How long can we wait until the tariff effect becomes clear? And fellow Fed member Lisa Cook calling the July jobs report concerning, saying it could signal an inflection point for the US economy, saying these revisions are somewhat typical of turning points. Longer-dated US Treasury yields were higher after a weak auction of the 10-year note, the yield on the note rising to 4.22%, the 2-year falling to 3.7%, and the US dollar index is down more than 0.5% on bets that the Fed will cut rates more times than previously expected this year. The Aussie dollar has climbed back above 65 US cents, and Bitcoin is trading higher at 115,000 US dollars. Oil prices have slid to an 8-week low after President Trump's remarks about progress in talks with Moscow created uncertainty on whether the US would impose new sanctions on Russia, which is the world's second biggest producer of crude after the US. Brent crude futures down 1% at $66 a barrel. Copper rising more than 0.5%. Iron ore falling around 0.5% to $101 a ton. And gold eased as investors took profits. Spot gold around $3,373 an ounce. On the data docket locally today, we get the June trade balance. And among those companies reporting results are AMP and Light & Wonder. That is your day ahead. See you again tomorrow.